Okay, welcome students. We just finished our lesson on proportions and percents, which could be related to proportions, and we're about to move into rational numbers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing rational numbers. And before we do that, we need to remember what we learned in 6th grade about positive and negative integers. Integers are whole numbers, but we're going to extend that lesson, what we learned in 6th grade, into rational numbers, which are any numbers that can be written as a ratio or a fraction. Okay, so when we're setting our number line up, the things that are important is that these tick marks, that's what these lines are called, tick marks, are approximately evenly spaced. You don't have to use a ruler and measure it out, but they need to be about evenly spaced. And when you are counting, here we're counting up by ones, so we have to stay counting by ones. In other words, if we needed a negative 7, we can't just jump from negative 4 to negative 7. This one is negative 5, this is negative 6, and this is negative 7. So that's important to remember. We learned in 6th grade that all of the numbers to the right of 0 are positive, 0 is neutral, and all of the numbers to the left of 0 are negative. When we have two numbers, like let's say for example 3 and negative 3, those numbers are opposites. 2 and negative 2 are opposites. 1 and negative 1 are opposites. Okay, so opposites, it's one of our key vocabulary for this unit. Opposites are two numbers that are equally spaced from 0 on opposite sides of 0. That's why they're called opposites. So they're evenly distant from 0 on opposite sides of 0. Okay, when we add opposites together, 3 plus negative 3. Let me show you how to do that using arrows. So when you model using arrows, or model addition or subtraction using arrows, you always start with 0. So we're going to start at 0 and go to our 3. So 0 plus 3, and then that's 3 plus negative 3. So the 3, first of all, is positive, so we were moving away from 0 to the right. So this dark arrow shows our 3. And then the negative 3, we're moving, first of all, you start that arrow, this is called the tail, the end of the arrow is the tail, and you line your arrows up, tail to tip. So the tail of this one starts at the tip of the first one. And it's moving toward the left. You can see the direction it's pointing. So it is going in a negative direction. So positive 3 plus negative 3, wherever the tip of this arrow ends, that is the answer or the solution to the problem. So it's 0. Positive 3 plus negative 3 is 0. And that's true of all opposites. When you add any two opposites together, the sum is always 0. Let's practice modeling addition with arrows. Okay, so my first step when I'm modeling here is, come on. All right, so my first step, oh no, all of my number lines disappeared. Bummer. I have a solution for this problem. Okay, so what I was saying was we're going to practice modeling addition with arrows. So my first step is to put some numbers on my number line. So I'm going to put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. -1, -2, -3, -4. If I need to add more numbers later, I can certainly come back and do that. So my first problem is 1 plus 2. Well, we all know the answer to that, but let me show you. Let's start off with this easy problem to show you how to model that. So we start with our 0 always and go 1 to the right, 1 space to the right because it's positive. So that is our 1. And then we're going to add 2 more to it. So we went 1, 2, also to the right because we're adding a positive 2. And that let us land on 3. So 3 is the answer to our problem. 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, let me change colors here, and I will show you a different problem. Okay, what about if we add positive 3 plus negative 5? Okay, whenever you see parentheses around a negative number like that, I know kids who have done a very good job of learning PEMDAS always think, oh, I have to do that first because you, quote, do parentheses first. However, there's nothing to do in these parentheses. That is just something to help clarify. If we didn't have those parentheses, the problem would look like this. It would look like 3 plus minus 5. Well, what in the world does plus minus mean? We don't know. It doesn't mean anything. So we put the parentheses around to show that that is 3 plus negative 5. Okay, so you start with your 0, and you go 1, 2, 3 to the right. That is our 3. And it's moving to the right because it's a positive 3. Whenever you see a number and it doesn't have a sign, it doesn't have a positive or a negative sign, then you assume that it's positive. And then we start at the tip of this arrow with the tail of our next arrow. And it's moving 5 negative, so to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So wherever that arrow ends, that is our answer. So positive 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2. I hope that makes a lot of sense to you because we've already seen that positive 3 plus negative 3 is 0. And here we didn't go back 3. We went 1, 2, 3. That would have put us at 0. But we went back negative 5. So even 2 more than 3. So that's going to put us 2 more spaces to the left of the 0. Okay, on your own paper, here is your homework assignment, the beginnings of your homework. Okay. All right, so for your homework, okay, so homework, the date is 10/29. Please put your name on it and the period. Okay, so you don't have to write these problems, or you don't have to write the directions, but you just have to do it. So number 1 on your own paper, model 2, it's positive 2 plus negative 1 using arrows. So you're going to find the answer and show the answer to positive 2 plus negative 1 using arrows, like I just showed you. Number 2, you're going to model negative 1 plus negative 2 using arrows. And I'm sure that you noticed, some of you, that I didn't put parentheses around the negative 1. Common practice is that you don't because there's no confusion there. But if you want to put parentheses around it, you certainly may. Not a problem if you do. Not a problem if you don't. Okay, so let me blow our minds with this next problem. And I know it's going to blow your minds because I saw your readiness test on Friday, and this was not something that you all were comfortable with. You didn't have decimals on the readiness test, but let me start with decimals. Okay, I told you before that each of these tick marks has to be the same value. They're going up by the same increments. So this one went from 1 to 1.5. So it's going up by 0.5, right? So that means this one has to be 0.5 less than 1, which is 0.5. Or you could think of it as 0 plus 0.5 because all of these distances have to be equal to 0.5. So if you have 0 minus 0.5, then that means this is negative 0.5. Also, 0.5 and negative 0.5 are opposites. They're equally distant and on opposite sides of 0. So if this second one over to the right was, I'll erase my lines. So the second one over to the right was a 1, then what is the second one over to the left? Well, it's the opposite of 1, negative 1. And I could put negative 1 or negative 1.0, they're the same. And so the third one is negative 1.5. So number 3 on your homework, let me go back to the homework page. Okay, number 3 on the homework is to model 1, positive 1, plus negative 0.5 using arrows. So positive 1 plus negative 5 using arrows. Let me go back to that number line where you can see it. So you're going to model positive 1 plus negative 0.5 using arrows. Okay, so there's decimals. What about fractions? So how can we show fractions on a number line? Okay, so thank you, number line, for popping up. All right. So I have 0, and I'll call this one 1. This is what was actually on our readiness test. And then you were given the task of labeling negative 1. Well, negative 1 is the opposite of 1, right? So it has to be equally distant from 0, but on the left side instead of the right side. So 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks away from 0. That means negative 1 has to be 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks away on the opposite side. So that is how you decide where the negative 1 goes. Okay, so if this is 0 and this is 1, and there's 4 spaces between them, then that means that each space is a fourth, right? 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 1 is actually 4/4, right? And we can go back and call this 1/2 if that makes you happy. How many fourths would be to the right of 1? Just keep counting. 5/4, 6/4, which is the same as 1 and 1/2. You can write it that way if you want to. 7/4, 8/4, which is 2. Okay, so what is this tick mark right here called? Well, it's one space to the left of 0. One space to the right of 0 was positive 1/4. So this is the opposite of positive 1/4, negative 1/4. So that makes that negative 1/2 and negative 3/4. Okay. So now we're on to number 4 for your homework. And number 4, I want you to finish completing this number line. You have 4 more tick marks over here for you to complete. So finish completing the number line. So complete the number line. And then model 1/2 plus negative 3/4 using arrows. Okay, soon we will move on to adding rational numbers without modeling. We won't have to draw any more arrows. To do that, we have to remember how to add and subtract fractions. The easiest fractions to add and subtract are ones with like denominators. So if we're going to add 1/4 plus 1/4, when our denominators are the same, we have a 4 and a 4, then we have what's called like denominators. You do not add them. You don't say 4 plus 4 is 8, because we're talking about fourths. This is 1/4 of a pizza plus 1/4 of another pizza. It doesn't become eighths of a pizza. You add the numerators together. 1 plus 1 is 2. So if I ate 1/4 of a pizza yesterday and 1/4 of a pizza today, then I've eaten 2/4 of that pizza. And you can simplify that. We normally do simplify to say that I've eaten 1/2 of that yummy pizza. Okay. Similarly, we'll have 2/7 plus 3/7. Okay. Our answer is going to be in terms of sevenths. And we just add our numerators. 2 plus 3 is 5. And this time, there's no number that goes into both 5 and 7. So 5/7 would be our answer. Okay? We don't always have common denominators though. Sometimes we want to say that maybe I was hungry and ate 1/3 of a pizza and my child only ate 1/4 of the same pizza. But we want to know how much of the pizza have we eaten. So in this case, when you don't have a common denominator, you have to find the least common denominator. Least common denominator. Whoopsie. Okay, I keep messing that up. Least LCD, least common denominator. Okay, and what the least common denominator is the smallest multiple of both numbers, both denominators. Smallest multiple of both numbers. So, let's see, we'll find our multiples of 3. And just skip count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and we could go on, but we won't. And find our multiples of 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, and again, we could go on, but we don't need to because there is 12 and there is 12. So we have found a common denominator, a common multiple, and it's 12. Okay, so then now the next step is I want to find equivalent fractions. So I have found my least common denominator. Now I need to make equivalent fractions. And to do this, I like to line my problem up like this. You don't have to, but it's the easiest for me to visualize, maybe because it's how I was taught to do it a long time ago. Okay, so we have 12. Our least common denominator is 12. So whatever our answer is going to be some sort of twelfths. Okay, remember proportions, equivalent fractions, two equivalent fractions are just a proportion. So 1/3 is how many twelfths? We multiply 3 times 4 to get 12. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1/3 is 4 twelfths. And the same thing down here. 1/4 is 3 twelfths. You don't do anything to the denominator. You just add the numerator. So together, my child and I ate 7 twelfths, more than half of a pizza. Okay, subtraction works the same way. So if we want to have 1/3 minus 1/4, we want to see how much more of the pizza I ate than my child, then we would subtract. If I ate 1/3, the kid ate 1/4, then how much more did I eat than him or her? So you still have to find, it's only with addition and subtraction, but with both addition and subtraction, you have to find the least common denominator. We already said that 1/3 is 4 twelfths, and 1/4 is 3 twelfths. So when you're subtracting, again, you do nothing with the denominator, leave it alone, and you subtract the numerators. 4 minus 3 is 1. There's no number that goes into both 1 and 12, so 1/12 is your answer. Okay, so now for the remainder of your homework, we've already gone over 1 through 4, or I've assigned you 1 through 4. Now here are the rest. There's 10 problems. So number 5, 3/4. Let's start off with an easy one. 3/4 minus 2/4. 3/4 minus 2/4. Okay, number 6, 11/15 minus 1/3. Oh, we made it a little bit more difficult because now you have to find the common denominator. Okay, we need to do subtraction and addition. So here's an addition problem. 2/7 plus 1/5. And number 8. Okay, keep clicking erase. Number 8. 1/4 plus 3/8. Remember, as you're doing these, please simplify them if you can, if they're able to be simplified. Number 9, challenge question. 1 minus 7/8. So, how can you show 1 as a fraction? And the last one, number 10, 3/5 plus 1/4. And I made that 5 ugly, so let me say that's 3/5. Okay. All right, solve each of these 6 adding and subtracting fraction problems, and then also the first 4 modeling addition with arrows on your number line. Okay, all of this is due Tuesday. Have a good day.